You may find that you have more controls than you can reasonably fit on one screen. To help programmers manage their interfaces, QSys allows plugins to have multiple pages, each with their own layout. Creating pages is simple, but definitely requires careful attention to the structure of your code, as it's easy to end up with a lot of controls, leading to a huge file and difficulty finding those controls when you go to maintain or modify your code. Before we begin, I want to clarify that what I'm about to show you only applies to pages for plugins as shown on the schematic pages. It does not apply to UCI pages or layers. That's better discussed in a UCI design lesson. Before we get started with developing our plugin, I want to show you how to enable the developer mode in QSys Designer. This mode is incredibly helpful when developing the user interface of your plugin, since by default, QSys Designer won't automatically reload your plugins unless you delete and re-add every instance of it, or close and reopen the program. In order to do this, we need to find the shortcut we use to open the program. I usually launch QSys from the Start menu, so I'll find it there, right-click on our target version, and show it in File Explorer. If we right-click the shortcut and go to Properties, we see this target field. If we go to the end of the text box after the quotes, we can add a space and / followed by dev. Make sure that it's a /, not a backslash like what's in the path, as it won't work. Once you're done, click OK, and that's it, with this shortcut. You will have to do this for every version of Designer you want it to be enabled on, and for desktop shortcuts if you have those and want this function enabled through them. Now, if we open QSys Designer through our shortcut, you will see this debug option in the menu bar. If we click it, we can go down to Auto Load Plugins and click on that to enable the function. This is a toggle and is reset when you reopen QSys, so make sure you reselect it when needed. Now, if you have a custom plugin and make a change, once you save that file, QSys will automatically reload it. Just know that you won't see any layout changes in your plugin unless you close and reopen the plugin window. One last note on this, I have seen some stability issues when using the auto load feature and have crashed QSys Designer a few times after making a bad edit to a plugin. So make sure you save your design file early and often if you have other work in there. With that set up, we can start building our plugin. As always, I'll start by getting a copy of my plugin template from its GitHub repository, saving that to my plugins folder, and filling in the basic plugin info. Next, we're going to create a property called control_count that accepts an integer from 1 to 256 with a default of 22. We'll use this to determine how many copies of our example control that we want, and use that to determine how many pages we need. Next, we'll create a set of text indicator controls with the quantity being based on that property. Now, we'll skip down to the getPages function and uncomment it. What we need to do here is to return a table containing objects with a key of name and a value of the page name. One quick note, when we go to retrieve the current page value later on in this video, it only gives us an integer representing the index in the pages table. If we want the name of the page, we would want to create a table outside of this function where it can be accessed globally, then refer to it when building this table. Since the pages depend solely on the numeric index and not on any text, we'll just build the table in here. We're going to create pages of 6 controls each, for no real reason other than that feels like a good number. So we'll create a for loop with a max based on the number of controls set by our property divided by 6, making sure we take the ceiling of our value so we include all of the controls. And we'll add entries to our table based on the index value. Now that we have our pages created, we can save this file, bring the plugin into QSys Designer, and we see our control count of 22 in the properties. If we open the plugin, we can see that we have our 4 pages as we expect. The first 3 will hold 6 controls each, and the last will hold our remaining 4 controls. So now, let's add those controls. I mentioned earlier that it's easy to end up with a lot of controls when using pages. One way that I like to mitigate this is using separate functions for each page. This helps organize the controls and allows us to use the folding features of Visual Studio Code to hide the contents of those functions, to easily cut down on visual clutter. Since we're utilizing a single set of controls here, we'll just work inside the getControlLayout function directly. The first thing we need is the current page index, which we can find inside the properties table. This is a special property since it's the only one that is able to be changed during runtime, as well as during the design, of course. This change occurs every time a new page is selected, at which point the getControlLayout function is called to rebuild the user interface. We'll start by grabbing the page index and storing that for easy access. Next, we'll set up a for loop to iterate through our controls. We'll use the same math that was used to get the page count in order to get the page number of the current control and confirm that it belongs on the current page. Next, we'll get the index of the control within the page to use for positioning later. And finally, we'll set up our control based on the information we've put together so far, along with a few generic options to get it to show up, and add that into our layout. Once we save our file, we can go back to Q-SYS, reopen our plugin, and we see our controls. If we modify our control count, our plugin updates automatically. As a quick demonstration, I'll add some integer knobs, wire them up, and enter emulate mode. If I adjust any of the first 6 knobs, you can see the controls are updating as expected, but if I adjust knob 8, nothing happens on the first page. However, if we go to the second page, you can see that the second control there, which would be control number 8, has changed, and the rest of the pages are still unchanged. This was just a quick demo of a simple but incredibly powerful feature in Q-SYS. As you can probably tell already, pages are a great way to help developers organize controls and provide a great interface for their users by reducing clutter on screen without sacrificing functionality. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. For more information on Q-SYS plugin development, check out my other videos, as well as the links in the description below. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments, and I will see you in the next part. Thanks for watching.